A leader really has to have a vision for where they're going and where they're taking the people with them too. Leadership is about who you are being, not what you are doing necessarily. So you have to be the inspiration and example for whoever you're leading.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. I'm so excited to have my friend Lynne Roe here on the show. She works with entrepreneurs and small business owners to develop a strong foundation to lead their business. She guides business owners in developing strategic action plans and sound decision making that leads to dynamic business growth. She takes business owners from entrepreneur to CEO of a successful and profitable business. Sounds good. Lynne is the author of Leadership in Action, Inspiration for Intentional Leadership. And it's a book designed to help leaders of all types improve their leadership skills a little bit every week. Amazing. Well, Lynne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm
I
happy to
am
be here.
so excited to have you. In my programs, I am often speaking about marketing and sales and all of that kind of thing. And I've noticed in 2025, the topic du jour has been leadership. So I would love your general philosophy in leadership. Like what makes a leader?
So anyone can be a leader at any level. But when you're a business owner, and I think that's most of our audience here are people who are business owners, you really have to lead your business in three different ways. You have to lead the business itself, and that's with a strategic plan. It's with deciding where the business is going. It's deciding what processes and procedures do we need to put into place. So that's one way you have to lead. You also have to lead your team. So you have to be that kind of a leader as well. And you have to lead yourself. You have to lead yourself to become the person that the bigger business that you're trying to grow into needs, not the person you are now, but your business is only going to grow as much as you grow. So you have to be this three-part leader.
I love that perspective. I think that that's a really awesome framework. When people start really examining leadership, you mentioned like everybody, anybody can be a leader. What do you think distinguishes the most leaderly leaders? Like, what sets them apart from someone who says, yeah, I'm a leader, and they're maybe approaching it a bit casually versus someone who's decided that they're going to go pro with it? What would you say is the biggest difference?
I think it's two things. One is a leader really has to have a vision for where they're going and where they're taking the people with them too. And the second thing is leadership is about who you are being, not what you are doing necessarily. So you have to be the inspiration and you also have to be the example for whoever you're leading.
Okay, so I hear as a coach that whole idea of like be, do, have, where you need to be something and then you can do something so then you can have it. You just said, who you're being, not what you're doing. Can you break this down for us a little bit? Like, what does it really mean to be something? And how is that different than somebody who's just automatically doing something? What's that distinction, do you think?
So being is doing what you say you're going to do when you said you were going to do it in the way you said you were going to get it done. I mean, I know that sounds like doing, but it becomes who you are if you're doing it right. You're someone that people can count on. That's one way of being. Another way of being is understanding yourself as well as understanding other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's reflective as well as being out in front and being the example for others to be reflective as well as being out in front.
I think I was listening to Alex Hormozy. I listened to a lot of Alex Hormozy, and he really challenged that our tendency as business owners to say like be the thing and he said exactly what you said, which is, well, what are we doing if we're being that? And so, put another way, thinking about this on another level, it seems like you're saying that a true leader has integrated the things that they do or the choices that they make all the way down to the level of identity. that they can't see themselves doing anything other than what they are doing or making the decisions according to that character compass, if you will, versus someone who is maybe not convinced. And what I'm thinking about, somebody who's just like doing leadership, doing it very task oriented. I'm from a corporate background, so I have quite a bit of experience there, but it's also in entrepreneurship. It's like everywhere.
Yeah,
But
it
I
is
notice like
everywhere.
people that are going through the motions, so to speak, maybe don't have the level of understanding or conviction is the word that's coming to my mind.
Hmm.
Conviction in like, why are you doing the task? Like what's the real why behind it? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I like that word conviction because it is deeper down. It's not just I'm doing this. It's a I believe in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe in what I'm doing. So, when you see somebody who's really stepping into that next level of leadership, like what are maybe some of the changes in their behavior that you notice? Like, what are some of the things that are demonstrative of that character trait, that admirable leaderly set of character traits? What would you say is a bit of a difference?
I think one thing you can observe is that the people around them are listening more closely, are paying attention more closely, are interested in what the leader has to say, but also the leader is very interested in what the rest of the people around them have to say. So, not just dictating this is the way it will be done, but listening to understand what the other people's perspective is and then incorporating that into whatever final decisions that they make.
Yeah, I think we've all had that boss or that family member who was exerting power, and saying this shall be the way that it is because I said so. And we've all probably experienced that frustration of not being heard, understood.
Yes.
And, you know, do you find that when you're working with people that they have a fear that they could turn into that, or that could they could become their memory of somebody who is maybe inappropriately exerting power, and maybe that might lead them to their own hesitancy in leadership? Have you ever seen that?
Usually, the people who are concerned about that are not the biggest problems. I mean, because
Interesting.
they're self aware enough that they can pay attention to how they're interacting with people. It's the people who aren't paying attention to that become a bigger problem.
Okay, say way more about that. It sounds like there may be maybe a little hint at your mission in here somewhere. So talk to me about the terrible leader, that probably does need the leadership training. Why don't they get it? Why are they not understanding this?
That's a good question, and I think it happen. It's different for different people, um, and I was one of them. I was one of those
You
people
were a
originally.
terrible boss?
I was in the beginning. Yes, I was a terrible boss. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought that being a boss was you just tell people what to do, and of course that doesn't work, right? You
Right.
alienate people. You don't get them to understand where you're headed at all. They're just afraid to even deal with you sometimes.
Mm.
So you need to change and think about the other person, but also think about, this is where we're headed. And as the leader, I don't want to be making all the decisions. I need your input to help us make the best decisions
I
because
love
it's
that.
not
Enrollment is
always,
such,
yeah,
yes. Enrollment is such an important,
yes.
not just a strategy, but I would say pretty fundamentally, if you're going to have characterful leadership, then enrollment of people around you is super important. Well, I didn't know you were going to fess up to like the firsthand knowledge, the mess becomes the message. Am I right?
No, I don't really talk so much about that, the mess becoming the message, but it takes some thinking. If you're one of those people who's walking in saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna tell everybody what to do and it'll be great," you have to take a step back and say, "Did I like the person who just told me what to do when they were my boss?
There
What
it
did
is.
I
Yeah.
like that they did do?" Right? You need to be aware of what you are doing and pay attention to what you want to do, how you want to be seen, and
So
how
you
you want to be
obviously
interacted
didn't
with.
you didn't stay a horrible boss. Like you turned into a transformative leader to the extent that you wrote the book. Like you literally love leadership like this much.
I do.
So I'm
Yeah.
I'm just so curious, like what was that catalyzing moment or that aha moment for you? And also I'm curious, like where do you see it in others that they realize, oh, I have the responsibility but haven't dialed in the role yet?
I think it still haunts me. It still haunts me. There was one particular time where I'd asked someone to do something, and what came back to me didn't look at all like what I was expecting. And I
Mm.
didn't even realize that it was the answer to my question. And so I not so nicely went to the person. I said, "What is this that you gave me?" And when he explained to me this was exactly what I'd asked for, it was just in a different format. I thought, oh, I really need to change how I'm interacting with people because clearly I alienated him at that moment because he'd worked hard to create what I had asked for. And just because it didn't look exactly the way I had it in my head didn't mean that it wasn't the answer to my question. So that was, I think, the one instant that I said, I need to make a change in how I'm interacting with people because this
That's
is
so
not going to be
powerful, and
acceptable
thanks
in the
for
long
sharing
run
that
at
story
all.
because I
I'm
think
never going to get to
not
where
only have
I
we
want to be
been,
if I can't interact with people appropriately.
yeah, and I
I was
appreciate
pretty
you
young
sharing
back
that.
then.
I appreciate you so much, like telling us that story because I think all of us have had that experience where we thought we were doing a good job and then we received pretty harsh criticism from somebody. We've been on that other side, but like I think something that it's making me think about is I'm like, whew, when have we done that? Maybe even by accident, where we got frustrated. You know, one of the things I see a lot of entrepreneurs do is they get frustrated. They say, "I'll do it myself." And they don't realize how disempowering that can be to someone who is literally waiting in the wings, wanting to help, wanting to grow themselves, wanting to progress, wanting to do a good job, wanting the recognition. And when you wrestle it from their hands and say, no, it's mine, I'm just going to do it, it locks you into that individual contributor role, but it also alienates your possibility of really leading other people to be able to create something great.
Yeah, it does. The example I just gave you, it took a long time to rebuild the relationship with that person. I mean, yes, I had to apologize and eat some humble pie, but I wasn't trusted right away after that, of course. So
Mhm.
it took quite a while. And that is what happens a lot with business owners is something, an event like that will happen, but they don't take the time to rebuild the relationships. And you're absolutely right that, it does alienate people and they feel well, certainly upset because here they were trying to do what you asked them to do. And all you did was say, you did a terrible job.
Right. Yeah. I think of it as being like maybe a little lazy with the communication or not taking the time to really think about it. Leadership, I've learned over the years personally, it can be both at the same time really fast and really slow. So, like, meaning being thoughtful and deliberate about your communication. But if you're just like waiting to get everything right or waiting to have all of the duckies in a row, the duckies are never in a row, right? Like, they are all over the place. They're in different quantum dimensions sometimes. Like those ducks don't line up. So you have with speed, but at the same time like recognize the ramifications of your decisions on those relationships and on other people. It is
Business
challenging, isn't it?
owners business owners often come to me and they say, my team, it's always coming to me with this question after a question after the next question after the next question. I never have time to do anything of my own. And I say to them, but that's because you're answering the question. It makes it easy for them to just come to you because you answer the question every time. If you teach them to think the way that they should be thinking, bring it to me after you've thought it through. Maybe you've got two recommendations and you need help figuring out which one is the right one. Then bring it to me. But don't just come to me and say, I don't know what to do here. Come to me with your thoughts. Because once they start to think for themselves, that's when you become the leader that doesn't have people coming to you all the time. That's when you've got the team that does the work really well without you getting involved all the time. But you have to not allow them to just come to you with every little question.
That's it. That's it. And, what you're describing as well is like, what's the culture of your team or your community that you're creating? Are you creating a culture of like that learned helplessness of just I'll just wait and then I'll ask the question or I'll be late and who cares? So can you talk to us a little bit about how you can create those boundaries with people in a way that is, well, I'd love to hear your philosophy on it. Like what do you see leaders needing to practice more in order to be more effective in bringing the best out of their team?
One of the things that I think is really effective with leaders is to limit the time that you're going to be available to your team. And I don't mean that you don't want to talk to them, but maybe it's every day from 1 to 3. Come to me with any questions you've got. But otherwise, I've got to focus on my own things, which is good for you and good for them because they can't just come to you every minute and ask you a question, which means they have time to think it through before they come to you. And obviously, you say, if it's an emergency and it can't wait, then it doesn't wait, right? Come to me. But otherwise, we'll meet at this certain time, or I'll be available for questions at a certain time. And by limiting it, people think it through and they know they only have a short time to talk to you. So they come to you with some solutions already. So the conversation goes more quickly. And then now you can praise them and say, thank you so much for coming to me with a couple of solutions. Let's work through them and see which one is the best for us. Or sometimes it's, thanks for doing this. You've done an awesome job. I don't need to do anything. We'll do what you say, what you suggest, So this idea of the boss is always available doesn't usually work as well as the boss is available every day, at a certain time. And the rest of the time I've got to work, the boss has to work, but also that gives the person who's working on things time for them to focus on what they're doing.
Lynn, you're making me reflect on my entire career here, because I'm seriously, like, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, dang, I was a hot mess coming out of college in some ways. College taught me some things, right? I learned how to prioritize. I learned how to study. I was very self-sufficient in that regard. But adding the dimension of managing relationships, like in college, I was an individual contributor. It was all about the Amanda show, getting the grades and getting through the program. And obviously I collaborated with like team and so on, just very naturally doing that. But when I became responsible for client relationships and I became responsible for like showing up in certain stand-ups and doing project planning and everything like this, I had to stretch into that. And when I did stretch into that and I learned very proactively how to become organized, my life changed. Like I was developed into the kind of person who could create things on her own and communicate really effectively and do all of these things. And what you're making me reflect on is I'm like, I was blessed to have leaders that gave me the opportunity to step into greater and greater levels of responsibility. And, that fear that we see in leaders not wanting to delegate, it
Yes,
robs people of that progress and that ability to become the better version of themselves.
absolutely. And it used to be you took a corporate job and you were in that job for life, but that isn't the way the world is anymore. And now, as the business owner, you need to do things so that your team is excited to stay. Because
Even if you're working with people overseas, even if you're working with little, like, seriously, the rise of the internet and the rise of choice and the awareness of the personal brands, I could not agree more. Your leadership skills become so critical.
they absolutely do. They
Yeah,
absolutely do.
amazing. Well, Lynn, if people wanted to follow you, what is the best way for them to find you?
The best way to find me is on LinkedIn, Lynne Roe, Roe. That's how you spell it, Roe. That's the best way to reach me. And I do have a free gift if you are interested in becoming a CEO of your business. So I talk about going from entrepreneur to CEO as a small business owner. You need to make that shift if you're going to grow your business. And if you would like to, I have a free assessment, the Entrepreneur to CEO assessment. So if you'd like that gift, you can go to my LinkedIn and just send me a DM that says free gift, and I will be happy to send it to you.
Amazing. That is so generous, Lynn. Thank you so much for offering that up. All right, dear listener. Hey, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already because you don't want to miss another episode. And Lynn did a really good job. She really showed up. So, if you could take 30 seconds and leave a rating or review for the show, we would be so grateful for that because it helps people to choose our show when they're out for a walk or doing whatever they do when they listen to podcasts. And finally, if you've got some leaders in your life, some entrepreneurs who would really benefit from hearing this conversation, go ahead and grab the link and send it to them directly. You might just lift somebody else's day. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you in a future episode.